You're watching Voiceover, How Did You Do It? At voiceoverpodcast.com, where we talk to seasoned, successful voice actors to find out how they did it. I'm your host, Ian Kleinfeld, and you can find me at voicebyian.com. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at voicebyian. Now, hi, Ivy. Welcome to the Voiceover, How Did You Do It podcast.
Hi, how's it going?
I'm good, thank you. How are you doing?
Good, doing well.
Yeah, happy Sunday.
Yes, happy Sunday to you too. I've forgot it was Super Bowl Sunday. I
Oh, it is
remember that
Super
was
Bowl
a thing.
Sunday, isn't it? Now we're going to date this podcast. This podcast was recorded on Super Bowl Sunday.
Oh, sorry, should I not?
That's all right. Doesn't matter. It's so let's talk about your website and your business and what you're doing now.
Sure, sounds good.
So what's your website? What's your business and what are you doing now?
All right. Well, my website is ivydupler.com and it's fairly new. I think I made it I don't know, like 3-4 months ago.
Uh-huh.
So I did not have a website until recently, which was bad, on my to-do list for a really long time. But yeah, it's a simple one pager. I think eventually I'd like to make it into, multi-page thing, all the various like media clips, news section, all that good stuff. But for now, I think it gets the job done. I was actually surprised when I showed it to other actors and stuff. They like the simplicity of it. So
Mm-hmm.
guess it does something right. My boyfriend made it for me because he can code and knows these things. So he's like,
Nice.
oh yeah, it'll be. He had told me he's like, if you want to make a multi-page, use Squarespace. I'm like, what? Why do I date you then? Like, you know how to do it. Do it for me. So he's like, all right, I'll make you a simple one. I'm like, how did you do that? Like, it eludes me, but
It's not that hard.
gets the job done.
Yeah. My wife's husband made mine.
Clever, clever, clever.
Very clever, yes. Now I'm a web designer, web developer in my other
Oh,
life.
nice,
So I just put mine together. Yeah.
nice.
And it's ivydupler.com. And what are you working on these days?
I do a lot of video game stuff mostly. So, uh, yeah, I do a lot of voiceover for like indie games and stuff like that. I do commercial work as well, but like my general beat has been video game work. So a lot of that going on, stuff just released and stuff releasing soon and stuff recording soon. So
And
not
so,
things I could talk about right now, but cool stuff. So
and God School, I guess, right? That's a
yeah,
anime.
it's an animated series. That it's very cool actually, and I'm completely biased, but I think it's very cool. Uh, it's an animated web series actually created by one guy in France.
Wow.
Um yeah, who was an animation student and he has like a grant I think for the French government and stuff and it's just him. Like I think he has someone else who does backgrounds and stuff, but otherwise he animates the whole thing. He did all the concepts for it. Um he works with some
Uh-huh.
voice actors actually to help develop the script a bit or at least translate it from French to English
Uh-huh.
because he also records it. He dubs it in French as well, which is very cool. But
I would never know that
yeah,
was just one guy.
yeah, it's cool looking. Yeah, so that's fun. I voiced two characters in that. I'm an evil girl and a nice girl, so it's fun to be able to do both, and people are surprised that I do both. So
Nice. And what were your fans for that you did the autographs for?
that was for that actually. Something crazy happened this weekend in that for the first time in my career someone asked for my autograph, which was crazy. So I autographed some prints of the characters I voice in God School for like a fan giveaway kind of thing in this Facebook group to keep morale up during COVID and all that. So they asked me if I would autograph prints to be given away, and I was very like, are you sure me? Really? Like, so that was very cool. That was awesome. So yes,
Nice.
I got to do that.
How did you get involved in God School?
Actually, very randomly in that the creator Gaylor, he just found me on Instagram and DM'd me and said like, I heard your reels. Uh, I want to work with you. I really want you to voice this one character in particular. And that was it. That's like I think one of like the only times in my life that Yeah, like a handful of time, but it's so rare to like straight up no audition. Like when he
Wow.
gave me the script, I was like, "How do you want her to sound?" He's like, "Oh, try some stuff. We'll find what works." I'm like, "Okay." um, so yes,
Nice.
that was it was very random, and that he just found me on Instagram, and I'd never heard of the show before, and then he has a pretty big following on Instagram, so I was like, "This is awesome." Okay.
That's
um,
great.
yeah, so it was it's not usually how it goes, as you know, but like that was
Right.
one of the rare times someone just found me, reached out to me, and was like, "I want you in this thing." So yes, thank you.
Nice.
I'll do it.
Well, I'll need to go listen to those tracks, and then I'll probably start an anime, and then I'll probably have you in it. So what were you doing before VO?
I was a copywriter.
Uh-huh.
I still kind of do editorial stuff here. I got laid off from that job because of COVID.
Uh-huh.
So, I'm kind of like I have been doing I was copywriter for a couple years, and before that I was doing more editorial stuff. So I used to write for epicurious.com.
Mhm.
I'd written for Lucky Magazine. Um, I was doing more just like editorial writing stuff, but I'd always kind of secretly wanted to do voiceover specifically for video games. And
Mhm.
what kind of led to that change, I guess, was back in like 2015 when,
Mhm.
gosh, I'm like, I'll do the somewhat truncated version of this because it could get long. But
Long is
I
okay.
okay, well, I'll make the interesting long then. So uh, so yeah, I was yes, I was I'm like, how do I want to phrase this? I had an internship at an online publication that was ending soon, and my editor had recommended me for a job at a really big video game publication as like
Mhm.
an editorial assistant. I was like, that'd be awesome. So after I think it was like 5 rounds of interviewing plus edit tests, like I felt really good about it, and I was like super excited because I'm like, I always want to work in video games. Oh my god, to write about games, review, and be like such a dream. And you know this is going. I not only did I not get the job, but they actually told me you were like, "Oh, you were in our top 4 out of like 500 candidates." I was like, "That's
Oh,
somehow
no.
worse." Like
Yeah.
so good, but not great. So bye. So I was super devastated. And I remembered I was out with my boyfriend at the time and just like kind of complaining and crying. And I was just like, I just feel so confused. Like, do you know what I really want to do? Like, secretly? Because like I had been sort of looking into voiceover
Uh-huh.
as a thing, and then the what I thought job opportunity was going to happen, so I was like, oh, forget that. I was like, I want to do voiceover for games and all this stuff, and he was like, well, that's cool, why don't you try that? And I'm like, I don't know how, I don't know how to do anything, I've never acted before, like I don't, and he was like, well, I think that's really cool, something you should look into. And then a few days later, he saw on Twitter that an indie game developer who we both love, whose games I've been playing since college and stuff, um, had posted an open call on Twitter for his next game. And he was like, you should audition for it. You have nothing to lose. So I recorded the audition on the built-in microphone on my MacBook because I don't know what I'm
Mhm.
doing with zero experience.
Uh-huh.
And I did not book the job because this is not a fairy tale, but like it was and I should not have. No, it's really like spoilers. I ended up working with him, like a couple of years later. And now when I told him, like, did you know I auditioned for that game a million years ago? He's like, I'm gonna try to find it. I'm like, please don't. Never see me the same and not in a fun way. Like you're gonna be like, good God. Um, so, but I went for it and it was such a fun experience, just trying for it. And I was like, wow, that was so great that I ended up just looking into classes and, just trying from there and then eventually building a reel and all that stuff and then kept trying at it. And I ruined the fun full circle moment. But yes, the first I think it probably was like the first legit professional um booking I had
Mhm.
was one of there were 2 guys. There was, like, 2 auditions I did kinda back to back, like, my first foray. I
Mhm.
booked with one of them, and then a few months later booked with the other one. And I
Oh,
was just
nice.
like, really like, yeah, so that was really fun, and I know for a fact one of them did not remember that I submitted for the first thing. I don't even know
Uh-huh.
if he heard it, but one of them did remember, and I was just like, "Okay, cool, like, you still like me, at least one of you guys." So
What
so
games
that
were
was, like,
those?
a fun thing. Those games were Lamplight City and Unavowed for
Mhm.
Grundislav Games and Watch It Eye Games.
Nice. And where
Yeah,
did you find the auditions for those?
that was on Twitter.
Uh-huh.
Um, a lot of the auditions I have found or audition/opportunities, because a lot of it's cold calling, that kind of thing, just paying attention to what's out there.
Hmm.
But there's a lot of game stuff on Twitter. You know, you kind of have to wade through it because, you know, it can range from just very low budget student stuff, but like sometimes you can find some legit castings on there. And then the fun thing with that community is kind of like once you start working within it, people then start recommending you because it's pretty insular and that kind of thing. So there's
Hmm.
definitely good opportunities on there.
Nice. Nice. So Twitter's good for something.
Yes.
It's good to know. And so you've been doing this since 2015.
Hmm.
And what do you think you owe your success to?
I'm still here.
You're
I'm
still
still
here.
trying. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just the persistence because that's why you know, I've told that story before about like, and I found this casting call with no experience. Like, I auditioned and I didn't book it, and I didn't book anything for a long time. It's like, you know, and if I had kind of given up after that, because I remember I was in a very, you know, sad state because like at the time I also was like moving apartments and I didn't know how I'd be able to afford rent now because I thought I'd had this other job lined up and now I
Hmm.
without the internship, like it was just a mess of stuff and a lot of ways kind of irresponsibly. Last thing I should have been doing is spending money on classes. But like
Hmm.
I was like, you know what, I finally have like a passion on this and a passion for this rather, and like, you know, I feel really inspired by it. And you know, of course I found other work, you know, to like keep me alive. But
Right.
the thing that kept me alive, you know, emotionally was investing in a voiceover career and seeing
Hmm.
what could happen with that and just not giving up with it. And also realizing that, like, you know, there's no set path. That I
Yeah.
think I would owe success mostly to the idea that there is no one way to do this. And it's, you know, I tend to kind of avoid advice that deals with absolutes, I suppose. Like, you should never do this. Oh, you should always do this. If you don't do this, then you'll never, you know, that kind of stuff.
Right. Just ask
Um,
someone whether you should attach an MP3 to an agent or not, right?
what do you mean?
I'm sorry, just ask someone if you should attach an MP3 to your email to an agent or not.
Hmm.
You get
Yeah.
definite answers on both
Yeah.
ends, right?
Yeah.
You never should do that. You should always do that. You should
Uh-huh.
never have a link. You should always
Uh-huh.
have a link.
I think the only never should be never send a WAV file as an audition. that's,
Yeah,
that's a good never. But
that's a good tip.
yeah, no, totally. I mean, it's funny you said that. I feel like the one piece of advice of sorts I've heard from so many conflicting things from casting directors, from other actors, classes, casual chats. I feel like no one has reached a consensus. Well, number one, if one should slate or not as a
Mhm.
default. I feel like that's, and then number two, if you are told to slate or feel you should slate for animation video game stuff, if you should slate in character or
Right.
not. No, it's like, and it's
No, I
frightening
know,
how
yeah.
passionate people are. Like, you know, it's never just, oh, you know, maybe both. It's always like, I never. It's like, oh my God, okay, but you book work, but you also book work. So which one, which in some ways is comforting. It's like, there is no right answer, but
Yeah, but
it's
don't tell
still,
them that.
yeah. So yes, I feel like just, you know, realizing that there's no one way to do this has been, a huge help, just logistically and mentally, I suppose.
Mhm. Nice. So what are some of your favorite projects you've worked on?
Oh man. So I was saying before, like the two games that were kind of like my first, you know, big games I had done. They're both games that you would call adventure games, like within the
Uh-huh.
narrative kind of genre, like the point and click adventure scene. So I do a lot of work within that, and it's so much fun. It's the best thing because I feel like when most people, you know, not to generalize too much, but I feel like a lot of times when looking into like classes or learning about like, oh, video game voice acting, it's this idea that, you know, a lot of it's going to be barks and grunts and, you know, like war lines, and, you know, and I've done stuff like that, and that's fun to do as well. There's a project I'm in, I don't know when it's coming out, but my first time is like a playable fighting character, you know, so I got to say all the stuff like, you know, all the lines about like losing health or, you know, death lines and kill lines and
Mhm.
stuff like that. So that stuff's really fun. But I don't know, the favorite kinds of things that I've done have been the more character focused, you know, narrative stuff, lots of story, lots of dialogue. And I got to voice a protagonist in a
Mm.
detective adventure game called Whispers of a Machine.
Uh-huh.
And that's my favorite thing I've done. I mean, how can it not be? You know what I mean? Like
Right. Yeah.
I just, especially because the reason why I even wanted to pursue voiceover in the first place is because when I was little, I used to play, and I still play. I say I used to. Literally yesterday, I was streaming one. I play these Nancy Drew point and click adventure games, and they were like my whole life as a
Uh-huh.
kid. And then I like reconnected with them. And for fun, I used to mute the game and read the text on screen and try to like time myself to see if like my delivery was good. This was like me at 9. Like so
Uh-huh.
I love doing that stuff, and it was always my dream, like a personal dream to be able to voice like a detective protagonist character
Oh,
just like
nice.
Nancy Drew. So when that happened and when I booked that role, I was like, "Oh, this is amazing." So um that was really fun. It was actually a really, I don't know, really interesting kind of different experience having voiced characters in games within that genre who are the characters who you interrogate. In a lot of
Uh-huh.
ways, it's weird. In some ways, that was more fun, I suppose.
How
To
so?
be able, yeah, to be able to be the NPCs because like they tended to have, I mean, one person is asking the questions and the other's divulging the answers, so there
Hmm.
might be some juicy stuff in there about like you prying a confession out of someone.
Uh-huh.
It's like it's just kind of fun to be the person getting the confession pried out of them. Like, that's fun to act, or you know, um, admitting a dark secret, or being like the comedic relief, that kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
So voicing the protagonist was challenging in its own way, and that like you have to keep that engaging still, even when almost, half your dialogue, or at least like all the prompts to everyone, are questions.
Hmm.
Like to keep changing it up and to make it interesting, but to also keep it grounded, and not like all over the place to listen to, because you need to be like the emotional center of things, and you need to be somewhat of a blank slate, for the player to connect with you, but also like have your own personality and
Hmm.
show emotion. And that game in particular, the cool quirk about it is the main character, Vera, she has three distinct personality paths.
Mm.
So, depending on the choices you make, her character changes.
Oh,
So,
nice.
yes, you can choose to approach things empathetically, assertively, or analytically.
Uh-huh.
And, depending on these choices, eventually dialogue will start auto forming by the end of the game. Her reactions to stuff, she's going to be like much kinder, or much more assertive, or much like colder and just like straight to the facts. You know what I mean? So I had to do all that in the way I recorded it. They did not like tell me which one was which, like in the
Uh-huh.
booth. It was just kind of like, which in some ways was good because it's like a more natural approach as to like, I am angry now, I'm going to read it how like I'm going to read it. Sometimes was a little funny. I feel like there's a couple of lines in there that like, to me, I read them like kind when they were supposed to be sarcastic, or vice versa. Like
Right.
there's a couple, but I feel like that's just mostly me because I know how I said it. You know what I mean? Like I don't think it's super apparent in the game. But
Oh, I do that in my life all the time. I'm
didn't mean
like,
to come
oh, that
out
was
that way.
supposed to be kind, and I was
It's,
sarcastic.
yeah, there's just bad delivery, bad delivery.
Exactly.
Can we do that again? Yeah. Exactly. So just that was kind of fun though, just because you want it to still sound like the same character, especially since your personality can change back and forth. You only get locked into the personality path you're on about 2/3 of the way. So it
Hmm.
is possible for the first half of the game, the first chunk, you could be just very like assertive to people and just kind of angry about stuff. And then the second half be much kinder, but you still want it to sound like the same character.
Hmm.
So that was just like a cool challenge. And I don't know, I got a lot of really nice feedback on the role, to be honest, both in
Nice.
reviews and also just fans finding me on Twitter and stuff, and DMing to say that they really love my performance and it helped them connect to the game emotionally, and like that meant so much. That's amazing.
That is
So
nice.
that was really, really cool. Yeah. And I'd like to think that my character would be friends with Nancy Drew. So waiting for the crossover, just saying. But yeah.
Putting it out there, putting it out there. That's
Yes.
nice. Very cool. What's another fun experience you've had with it?
With what? With just,
With recording video games?
oh man. It was cool. I got to voice a character in a Marvel game. That was
Oh,
kind of
yeah?
like, probably, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, like one of my first ever video game bookings, but it was a mobile game. So that actually, that was a mobile game that's now been discontinued. called Marvel Avengers Academy.
Hmm.
And I was the first person ever to voice Viv Vision, who I'm hoping will make an appearance in WandaVision, which I don't watch because I don't have Disney Plus. But I've told my friends, I'm like, I trust you guys to let me know if my character, who's Vision's daughter from like another universe, like, I trust you guys to let me know if she shows up because then I can get some merch finally. There's no merch for her. I'm so upset. But she was like kind of a minor character in Marvel stuff. But I ended up buying the comics that she was introduced in, like this little 2-volume set
Uh-huh.
of this like Vision reboot. That won, I think, like an Eisner Award. Like they're really good comics, and that was like a very cool experience where it was just kind of like, okay, yeah, I get to give a voice, even if it's like 10 lines, pretty short for this little mobile game. That was just so exciting to be able to like have ownership over that character, and it's like extra cool now that like Vision's cool now. I was ahead of the curve, I suppose. So that's also cool too. That's just kind of like, oh, okay, now this character is somewhat relevant again too, so it's like,
Uh-huh.
oh, cool. So forever, she'll be voiced by other people, in much bigger projects, etc. But it's like, I was the first,
You were the
and the
first.
real ones now. Yes. That
Nice.
was just very cool. I remember telling my dad that. My dad was like freaking out because he was like a huge Marvel,
Uh-huh.
Spider-Man fan as a kid and stuff like that. And he's just like, oh man, I wish I could tell myself that like my daughter's gonna be a superhero one day. If I like as a kid, it's like, okay, dad. Like he almost seemed more like I was excited, but he was freaking out. So like that was fun.
Well, that definitely sounds fun.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Very cool. What advice would you give to voice actors who wanted to get started in games?
To get started in games, like I feel like games in particular. Remember I was saying before, like I feel like there's no straight path.
Yeah.
So much so with games, and that like a lot of when you think like, oh, I want to be in games, but all the AAA stuff is walled behind agents. Yes, yes, it is like that. That's how it goes. But there's so many things outside of just like the big giant games that everyone knows and everyone has heard of, and like those will be there. You can work your way towards that. Just like there are so many exciting, cool things happening on the indie scene, and it's so accessible and people are so friendly and it's so much fun to do. Oh man, like I was saying before, like so many things through Twitter and just like getting involved in that community in general, and how willing people are to work with you and how hands-on it can be. So I
Hmm.
don't know, I guess just don't be intimidated, I guess would be my biggest piece of advice. And I know it's like, oh, it's so good to like dream big. Absolutely dream big, 100%. But like the actionable things you can do, if the immediate goal is like, I want to be in a Blizzard game and I want to do it by next year, it's like probably not. But take a look at what else is out there, and
Hmm.
just kind of like, I don't know, just talk to people. Everyone's just really welcoming, and I feel like the indie community in general is such a collaborative space. Just fun to get involved with, and there's so many creative things happening. And because it's very like hands-on, it allows you to have really cool experiences
Hmm.
with other actors. I've made so many like IRL friends through these
Uh-huh.
games. That's the other thing too, is that every city has its own local indie scene. So like the New York indie scene is pretty tight knit. And it's also fun because like occasionally people have asked me, it's just like, oh, so like did you ever meet like so and so in that game you were in? Or, oh, you guys shared a scene, do you like know them? And it's like, yes, I do. That's not common, but yes, I do. Like and we do hang out. We are actually friends in real life, and that's really fun. So yeah, I just think just to have an open mind about stuff and kind of one step at a time. I don't want to say like no project too small and that like you 100% should be compensated for work you're doing that is being made to make a profit. Like, that goes without saying.
Right.
But so I'm not saying like, get involved in like really small things and work for free. Haha, who cares? Like, but like just the idea that there's so much out there, and video games as a genre are just so um expansive. It's not
Hmm.
just this like cream of the crop, elite little group for these very secretive castings, super hard to break in. It's like you can definitely work your way up, and who knows, some of the small games you do can end up being breakout hits and things like that. And I don't know, it's surprising when you really think about it. Even like these big outlets and stuff, uh they cover games of all sizes and things like
Hmm.
that, which is really exciting. It's just I don't know, it's just a fun way also to see if it's for you and to see like what games can offer as a whole, because all that big stuff will be there. But yeah, I would say
And,
look looks small.
And do you need a specific video game demo, or will just a character demo do?
See, that's another thing people have differing opinions on. I personally am of the mindset that you should have a separate video game demo. Personally, my video game demo is just comprised of booked work. I just have a demo that's like, hey, here's clips from stuff I've done.
Uh-huh.
There it is, because a lot of video games, and again, because it's like such a large genre, it's hard to generalize. In the same way that there are like different styles of animation, like adult animation and anime, like dubbing is different from like stuff for preschool, you know what I mean? So video games, though, in general, uh it is like on camera acting behind a microphone.
Hmm.
Most of the time they do not want cartoony voices, you know what I mean? Anything that's like, they're not really for kids unless it's a very specific cat, you know what I mean? You'll
Right.
know it when you see it, kind of thing. But especially the games I was talking about before, like the detective game, that's like a cyberpunk homicide detective game with like an AI terrorist organization. Like it's serious stuff, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
And even when it's like fantasy things, it's still, you know, it's taken seriously. So, I feel like if you have nothing else and you're applying to a casting and you have a character demo and they say like, oh, include a demo with your um your audition, I don't think it would hurt.
Hmm.
But yeah, a separate video game demo that just has more of that like realistic, gritty stuff. It can, include, like I was saying, like all the military game stuff can include something like that. Just something I think that's a little more grounded. I think it comes down to just paying attention to what is out there in video games,
Hmm.
like what's currently being made, what's popular, what's selling. And if your character demo doesn't include stuff, oops, if your character just hit my pop filter, if your
Hmm.
character demo does not include stuff like that, then either fill in those gaps or more likely just, make a new demo, I would say.
Hmm.
Ideally.
Right. Okay. And any more suggestions for people trying to get in there?
Um, trying to think. I don't know.
But I keep looking at your picture and I keep tilting my head the same direction because your head's
My little headshot, yeah.
yeah. Like,
Oh man. God, not to get too personal. My little goals list for last year was like new headshots, and I put it on my list as like, less New Year's goals and more like things I want to accomplish this year, because that picture's like, it's not that old, it's a couple of years old, but I was like, oh, it'd be nice to have maybe one that's a little more like, I like the outdoors one that I have, but you know what I mean, just a little more casual, a little less posed maybe. So I was like,
mhm.
oh, it'd be nice, maybe new headshots, and I had that on my goal list and I put it down on my list. I was like, I should wait till the spring. Yeah, spring of 2020 when it'll be really nice out and I'll go down to the park. No. So that's now on the goal list for spring of 2022. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I'm glad you like it. I'm gonna have to keep using it for a while. So
Yeah, that's on my goal. And then I cut my hair a little too short this time. So I have to wait a few weeks before I do it. So
oh, you'll never book that part then, that voiceover part. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, by that, it's funny. It's like I had done that because I was like, I'm gonna cut my hair short, so I need, my hair has grown back to that length and then some. Like by the time I
Yeah.
last cut it, but
Yeah.
yeah, other advice though for game stuff. I mean, I guess kind of goes back to what I was saying about just being open and being fearless. I would say, that's not to say that you should like track down the email addresses of casting directors for giant studios and be like, "Hello, hire me." But more being fearless, I think, with smaller studios, and just you never know. You know what I mean? If you see that this is a studio that handled like, these kind of indie games, if you have a competitive demo and you have work ideally you can show them, why not? You know what I mean? Like I think just having that confidence, because I feel like just games in general can be kind of intimidating, especially if you're going into this as someone who is a big fan of giant budget titles and
Mhm.
really wants to be in giant budget titles. And you know what I mean? It's easy to think like that's the industry and it's really scary. It's like, no, it's not. It's more than that and it's accessible, I promise you. I feel like obviously there's a line between, knowing what's appropriate, like who to contact and how, but like, I don't know, just keeping your eyes open for
Mhm.
stuff, and people talk and it's nice, and it's a very supportive community in general. Like I can't tell you how many times I've recommended people for jobs, people have recommended me for jobs, and it's just and it's nice. I don't know, people are friendly.
Hmm.
I think is also the thing under not being intimidated that
Yeah, I think
yeah.
that's true for voiceover. It's nice to know
Oh
that's
yeah.
especially true for games as well, for
Mhm.
indie games. So that's great.
Mhm.
So, um, you want to try a dry read?
Oh yeah.
We'll do
Let
our
me
little dry read thing,
let me pull that up. Oh, you sent
and let us know your thinking on it.
sure. My thing. What do you mean?
Like when you look at it, what you're thinking about the script, and what are you thinking about what you're going to do, and um, why
No,
did
sure.
you?
You want me to say that now?
Yeah, just
All
thinking
right.
out
Yeah.
loud.
Sure. Well, it's funny. I have vocal coach, a voiceover coach. I cannot speak. Suddenly, I'm like, I hear the word script, and I'm like,
I
uh, I don't know. Do you know Ed Lewis?
don't know Ed Lewis.
Okay, he's a casting director with Hyperbolic. He is awesome. He does really, really awesome kind of. He does like a basic kind of class and then like an advanced class for commercial voiceover. And
Okay.
his thing that he always said that when you first get a script, he kind of divides. Well, okay, I'll just explain what he says because I'm like trying to
Yeah.
get ahead of myself. Um, he's like, okay, the first thing you do when you get a script, is see what are we selling exactly? What kind of product is this? And so the script that you have given me is for Lyft. So, that's it's a car thing, but it's more of like a um how would you call it? I guess like a consumer service.
Hmm.
So it's like, okay, I would generalize it under that as opposed to cars. Because his thinking is that commercials are read in general. And I mean, I'm getting ahead of myself. What they really want from you is a natural read, but
Right.
like it can still tilt a little bit to like what we're selling here. There's multiple ways to do it. Um, into either easy, breezy, charming, and charmed, or low, flat, and cool.
Uh-huh.
That's what so first off, actually, you have to see if you're playing a character or a narrator. Character meaning like,
Right.
maybe it's a radio spot and it's someone talking to someone else or something, or it's like a quote real person, like, oh man, I saved so much money in my insurance by blah, blah, blah. Like that's not a narrator, that's a person. The second
Right.
you say my insurance, you're a person. So when it's a narrator spot, then it's one of those two things: low, flat, and cool, easy, breezy, charming, and charmed. And the way you can tell what it is based on what the product is. So if you're selling alcohol or something like that, or maybe like a sports drink, that's
Uh-huh.
probably going to be low, flat, and cool. It's like, buy this or not. It's up to you. Just kind
Hmm.
of whatever, It's just kind of low, flat, and cool. Like, okay. And you could still make it sound natural, it doesn't have to be like very put on kind of way of doing it, but it's just kind of like, yeah, Lyft is a lot more than a ride. Can't even speak. Lyft is a lot more than just a car ride. Like, whatever, that could be a way to approach it. But I would look at this and think it's more in the sort of consumer product stuff. So like shampoo or something like that would be
Hmm.
easy, breezy, charming, and charmed. Certain cosmetic companies, maybe not high-end cosmetics, but maybe more, drugstore cosmetic, that kind of thing,
Uh-huh.
where it's just kind of like you're being happy about it. Lyft is a lot more than just a car ride.
Right.
We're having fun. We got a smile on, talking to your friend, it's cool. Versus like it's more than a car ride. Duh. Do you not know that?
Lyft is
Okay.
more than just a car ride.
Right. Like that would be like the more, And that of course brings us to the next thing, which is just what they say they want in the audition and what you do at the booking are like completely different. Like
Right. Audition for
as you know,
readability, book it
yeah.
as conversational, and then they actually want more commercially.
Yeah, exactly. So none of this matters, isn't it? Okay. Like, it does matter though. It does matter because that's how you book it.
Right.
Um, but yeah, so I would look at this and I would personally go for more of that, easy breezy, charming and charmed, because like we're a little more accessible here. Like, even the stuff like at the end, it ends with an exclamation point in the copy. It's like, oh, we're having fun. Doesn't mean it has to be like, and get going. Like we're so excited, but just and get going. Like we're
Uh-huh.
having fun. It's cool. So those are my thoughts. When I first look at that script.
Mhm.
Cool. Would you like a read?
Yeah, read it.
All
Hit it.
right. Lyft is a lot more than just a car ride. Yeah, you heard me right. Shared rides, bikes, scooters, fancy cars, public transit, and more. And they're all available with your Lyft app. We're always happy to pick you up, but we can help. Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
but we can help you get there more ways than you thought. Download the Lyft app today and get going.
Nice. Easy breezy, charming and charmed.
Yeah, having a good time. Just download and get going. Totally fun. Yeah. So, but not like that hard sell. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
it's natural. It's like how you're talking to your friend, but it's more like if I'm selling my friend on a cool product. Is that personally, I know that they say like just read it like you're just telling your friend about it.
Uh-huh.
Yes, but
Because these are the
mm,
conversations I always have with my friends.
exactly.
Yes. Uh-huh.
I actually try to think of it more of like pretend it's like a really cute candle or something that I saw on
Yeah.
Instagram and I need to tell my best friend about it. I'm like, oh my God, have you seen this candle? It's amazing. I'm kind of obsessed with the candle. Like I would probably tell her that. Like that's how, you know what I mean? But like
Yeah.
even if I'm not passionate about the thing or I can't really picture who I would be selling this specific thing to, it's like, well, I know who I should be selling it to.
Mm-hmm.
And then oops, and then again I hit my thing.
All
And
right.
you know, it's small in here.
Here,
I
let
was
me
saying
make you feel better. There.
I was saying before, like it's dark in here because one of my lights blew out in my booth. Very
Yeah.
cool. But anyway, but yeah. So I don't know. It's that energy. I feel like, and it's just one of those things that the more you do it, the more you get used to what a natural read is, which is just like the question,
Right.
even then it's a difference between like pretend you're talking to your friend and pretend you're talking to a friend and it's an audition.
Right.
It's subtle, but it's there.
It is. It is. Yeah. Nice. Do you want to do it as your evil character from God School?
Oh, Minthe, yes, let's do it. Let me get in Minthe headspace. Lyft is a lot more than just a car ride. Yeah, you heard me right. Shared rides, bikes, scooters, fancy cars, public transit, and more. And they're all available with your Lyft app. We're always happy to pick you up, but we can help you get there more ways than you thought. Download the Lyft app today and get going. She's not
I
thrilled.
want to be friends with her.
Me too. I think she's fun. It's
Yeah.
actually really funny. All these little fan accounts have been popping up on Instagram of teenagers who want to like role play as the characters. So they all have names like Persephone underscore God School underscore official. It's like, all right, sure. But no one's made one for Minthe yet because like all the fans hate her because she's in the midst of this love triangle between Persephone and Hades. And
Uh-huh.
so they want them to be together, but there must be conflict. It is, after all, a show. So,
Right.
hello, I'm the conflict. So I'll look on YouTube and I'll see the comments under the episodes and be like, "Wow, I love this show so much. I love all the characters except Minthe. Someone needs to stop on that weed." I'm like, "Oh, I'm doing my job right." Like I love it. I
Nice.
screenshot a lot of the hate comments because I
Yeah.
love them. So I told my boyfriend, I'm like, anytime I see one of those, it means I'm doing my job right. Like I want you to hate me.
Exactly.
That's
If you
great.
can be a hateable character and people actually hate you, then you're
Yes.
doing it perfectly.
It's
Like,
so funny.
have
Yeah.
you read, there's a book called Confessions of a Prairie Bitch. It's by um the girl who did what was the bratty character on oh, I'm completely losing this. Hold on a second. I
Mhm.
gotta come up. I'm gonna actually look this up now
Oh,
because
go for it, go
I
for it.
literally cannot remember anything. Here we go. So it was she played Nellie on Little House on the Prairie.
Oh, okay, I never saw that show.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was probably earlier than you, but she
I
was
read the books, yeah.
hateable character, right?
Oh, man, yeah.
And so so she says Confessions of a Prairie Bitch, how I survived, um, by whatever her name is,
Yeah.
Allison Arngrim. And apparently she goes to events still and people still are mean to her
Oh my
because
god.
they just hate how she acted towards the other characters.
Oh
But it's a
god.
really good read actually, about being an evil character and
Yeah.
how that can be really empowering actually.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. Yeah, no, totally. It's kind of it's fun also because I was saying on that show, like I'm also like this very nice, sweet character who's the teenage goddess of the rainbow, and she's like super nice and yeah. So it's like funny because that character only has had a few lines. She's not as big in the story yet as the evil one. So I have to laugh and see that people hate the evil one so much that there are no like fake, or at least that I've seen There are no roleplay accounts for her, no fan videos. There's been some fan art. I love the fan art. The fan art's been cool, but
Yeah.
there's been no like little like a fan cam. Like they'll
Hmm.
take clips from the show and edit it with like K-pop and stuff. Nothing for her, but the nice one who's only had a few lines so far. People love her. It's like so funny to me. And I was like, oh, good. I'm glad that like that's happening. I wonder though. I'll find the one special
Yeah.
person who can appreciate Minthe, but
I'm going to start a Mincy fan club now.
just as long as none of the roleplay accounts send me Ivy hate, I get
Yeah.
it's confusing. We're both plants.
Right.
We're both plant names, but as long as I don't get hate account from there or hate mail rather from those accounts, we're
I, I,
good.
I'll do my best, but you know how it is.
You're hastily deleting your drafts. Yes,
Yes.
I knew that was you. God School official Persephone. God.
Yes. And what do you want to read it as Persephone now?
Oh, I don't voice. Sorry, voice Iris though. So
Iris.
I'll do it as the super sweet character. This will be quite saccharine but fun. Lyft is a lot more than just a car ride. Yeah, you heard me right. Shared rides, bikes, scooters, fancy cars, public transit, and more. And they're all available with your Lyft app. Oh, we're always happy to pick you up, but we can help you get there more ways than you thought. Download the Lyft app today and get going.
Oh my God.
They're a little different, yeah.
Yeah. That's fun. So, what about audition suggestions? Do you have audition suggestions for newbies?
um, yeah, I'll do it for character stuff just because that's fun. And I feel like just based on what I book, that's more my area.
Uh-huh.
You know, uh, some I don't know some really great tips that I've heard that I've started incorporating into my own auditions that I feel like it's made a huge difference.
Mm,
When you're auditioning for anything that's like character heavy, the good news is in a lot of indie stuff, they will give you art, like for games in particular, they will give you art of what the character looks like,
right.
which is nice, but not always, even for smaller stuff, whether they don't have the asset yet or there was something I auditioned for where I asked, I'm like, oh, is there art? They're like, yes, but we can't let you see it. And then I booked the role and I still haven't seen it. So like very secretive, because NDAs absolutely still exist in the indie world.
Right.
They're not as common, but they totally exist. And some are a little more informed than others on like what that prohibits. So it's always helpful to find artwork. If you're not given the image, it helps so much to just find artwork that you feel resonates with you, that
Mhm.
can help whatever voice you've decided, whatever performance, you've decided for this character, to find artwork that speaks to you, that you think
Mhm.
aligns with your vision of what this character should sound like is a huge help. It helps also, I think, to listen to music that puts you in the right mindset. Actually, that one game, I'll speak on that one a little bit more, I guess. That one was like a Nordic kind of mythology, just a really like dark, gritty kind of game. So I found all these playlists that are like basically used. It's like all the views on them are like D&D Dungeon Masters and me, because it's like
Uh-huh.
like 4-hour loop of just like all this like Viking gritty music, and it's like, but it's so helpful to listen to it. And then honestly, the thing that I like to do, the first couple of takes I do, I have
Sorry,
the volume. Oh, sorry.
that's a show, right? Ivy and the Dungeon Masters.
It's my next project, actually,
Yeah.
probably. But yeah. um, I'll like to actually listen to the music while doing my audition. That's not almost always. That's not the take I'm gonna actually use, mostly because like you can hear it on the mic. But it just helps you get in the mood. Like I'll
Mhm.
do maybe a take or two with the music up loud, because like this character that I auditioned for, she was evil. I have a type, as you can see. Uh, Actually, I've joked before to my friends that like 95% of the characters I do are either like uh just sexy and can kill you, or sexy and will kill you. Those are like the two types I generally book, which Iris is neither. She's pure and cute, Minthe I wouldn't call, exactly sexy, but like she can and probably will kill you. But even the detective from that game, it's just like, she had kind of like a self-assured energy, and she's a good guy, but like she can mess you up, let's be real. But
Uh-huh.
but anyway, so this character I was auditioning for was an evil character, but she had once been a good guy, who became evil, and the uh audition stuff for it, it was very like she runs into like her old friend who's the protagonist who knew her before she was evil. So he's like, like, what have they done to you? And she's like, oh no, like, you see, I'm enlightened now. Like, she truly believes that she's a good, like, I'm doing this for a good thing. And then when
Right.
he basically oh, sorry.
Yeah, right. All evil people think that they're good.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
yes, but especially in this moment, she's like, "No, I'm helping them," and he's like, "You killed them all." Like, So when she realizes that, he's not on her side, she totally turns, and it's just like this big, now you're gonna pay for that. Like, basically, intro to a boss fight. She's like a boss in the game.
Yeah.
And then you eventually kill her. And so then the other part was the death scene where she's still kind of screwed up, but like you have to feel sorry for her. So I found music that had like this build to it, like this big crescendo. And I did the first couple of reads with that music on pretty loud just because like I wanted to be in the scene, just to feel it, to like be in the scene and be like, this is probably music that they'll probably score this with.
Hmm.
And it helps so much because it's just like it gets you just loosened up. You're in the moment. You are that fallen Viking goddess now. You know what I mean? Like
Uh-huh.
you believe in your cause, and as the music's swelling, it's like you forget you're in your closet, and when the lights doesn't work properly, like, you know, it's just so helpful, I feel, to get you in that scene. And a similar thing I like to do that, I'll cut it obviously before I send the audition in, to do not just lead in lines like I know some people like to do just like a grunt or like a something like, like listen here and then do the line, like if it's you're angry, that kind of thing. I'll just make up stuff. I'll just be like in the moment, like, what's some other plausible dialogue? What are things she could have said to get us to the moment where we are now? So like for that one in particular, because you stumble upon her doing creepy stuff in this like glade and whatever, and you're like, what happened to you? And she's like, no, don't you see, it's good, like that kind of creepy stuff.
Hmm.
I was like, she would probably, before the protagonist finds her, she's probably like off doing weird, maybe talking to herself, or she is like a plant, again, another common theme, plant stuff. I think
Uh-huh.
it's because of my name, I'm typecast.
Plants That I Have Been by Ivy Dupler.
God, I'm just thinking about, I've been so many plant girls. Like, they just see the name, they're like, all right, checks out. But yeah, so she's doing plant stuff. I'm like, maybe she's like talking to her plants or just like talking to herself while I'm literally like, as I'm talking about it again, doing like weird hand movements of like
Uh-huh.
cradling vines. Like I'm like in the it's like just be in that space. So it's not like the scene opens what's written on the page. You're already in the scene. So by the
Hmm.
time you're warmed up and you have the music going, everything, you are so in this moment that it's almost like you know, the microphone needs to like be quiet. It's almost like shh, it's just observing. You're not performing to the microphone, like it's just observing what you're doing
Nice.
at that point, if that makes sense.
That does.
Cool.
That's really powerful.
Thank you.
Yeah. Nice. So do you sit or stand usually when you record?
Oh, I stand.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually,
Probably there's no room in the
excuse
closet
me.
to sit,
Yeah, so
right?
I was gonna say that's number one. No, number two, I've just heard from a couple of vocal or I keep saying vocal because I'm like vocal coach. My sister does singing, and she's like somebody vocal
Yeah.
coach. I guess you could say vocal coach, but he knows. People I've
That's
worked with.
she does that singing thing.
Yeah, that thing. I don't do that. But yeah, so I've just heard the term "don't crunch your instrument" enough that I'm
Right.
like, I know there's ways you could sit in your posture. It's I tend to slouch. It's, you know what I mean? So I just kind of got into this standing, and I'm way more comfortable standing. It's burned me a couple of times. Actually, that the thing I was talking about before with the protagonist role, that
Uh-huh.
was by far the most like intensive thing I've ever recorded, and that was about 18 and a half hours over the course of 3 days.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I did a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, uh like 4 hour, no, it was like, God, it was something like that. I'm like, sure, like how did it go? It was like a 4 hour thing, and we took breaks throughout, and then like another, like basically all day recording.
Hmm.
And it was because like, it was, listen, I will say this just to say they gave me the choice of like spreading this out over 2 hour sessions for multiple weeks. But the problem was I was working full time at the time. I asked my boss, I'm like, is it cool if I do half day? And he was not having it, and which was
Hmm.
very frustrating. So I was like, great, we're taking 3 days off, we'll make it work. So it wasn't as, I will also say for that game, because it's a lot of talking it was more akin to like audiobook marathon than like heavy vocal stress. Like there was very little vocal stress, and what there was took maybe 20 minutes to do, and we saved it at the end. So that was not the hard part. So when I've told people that, like, even like your oh my God reaction, that sounds like for a video game, oh man, that's got to be so intensive, yelling. It's like, no, she's interrogating people. She's emotional, but not a lot of screaming. Oh, there's death scenes, but it's more just give me 3 barks of you getting shot if you mess up the puzzle. It's more of that. What was intensive about it and what made me like want to lay down for a week after is that I'm the idiot who insisted on standing the whole time. So my back and my feet were like
Yeah.
killing me. And the director kept asking me, because he'd see me, kind of wince. He'd be like, "Are you sure you're okay? Is your voice okay? Do you need water? Do you want a break?" But I'll be like, "Oh, the voice is fine." I'm like, "It is my back that is the problem." So I ended up with a chair. So then he's like, "Okay, we'll bring a chair in." But instead, I would just like take breaks in the chair, but still stand up to keep recording. Because I
Uh-huh.
just I was like, no, I gotta be in character. She's like astute. She's on her feet. I feel weird sitting. It's like, oh, hello. I'll read you a story. Where were you on the night of the murder? It's like, no, it doesn't fit. It doesn't feel right. So I very much prefer standing. I just
Mhm.
feel like I'm more, I don't know, like vigilant, like in the zone kind of thing. That and a mix of the like fear of crunching thy instrument vibe. I should just look up some like posture classes. That should be the
Yeah.
next training I invest in. How to sit.
Crunch not thy instrument. Yes,
Exactly.
that is the way. Nice. So this is self-promotion time. Anything you want to promote?
Ooh. Yeah. I'm on Twitter and Instagram, but Twitter's the more fun one. Instagram's more just like, I don't know. It's the same thing on Twitter, but less fun, I suppose. Just another like, buy this game. It's not fun. So Twitter is at Ivy Dupler is me. And the other thing I've been doing lately, since April, I guess, of last year, yeah, since like, the world fell apart,
Uh-huh.
was I've been streaming on Twitch, which is really fun. So my Twitch name is just twitch.tv/Ivy Dupler. I stream games that I voiced in a lot of the time, which is really fun. And I also just stream games that are within that, for the most part, within that adventure point and click narrative
Mhm.
genre.
Mhm.
Uh, that I tend to work in a lot because I think they're really fun. Like I was saying yesterday, I've been streaming an old Nancy Drew game that I've actually never played. So I was like, oh, that'll be
Mhm.
fun to do. It's great. I'm not good at puzzles a lot of the time, so that's fun to watch, I've been told. It was especially fun, I think, for people to watch when I streamed Whispers of a Machine, the protagonist one, when I streamed it for the 1 year anniversary, and then I streamed it again. The first time I streamed it was when it came out. So my first time playing it. And the developers had given me a walkthrough because they were like, oh, if you need help, like, here's the solutions to the puzzles. If you get stuck, I'm like, oh, I'll be fine. It's one thing to like play a game
Uh-huh.
on stream, people are watching, and oh, you can't figure out the puzzle. It's another entirely when you have recorded yourself speaking the solution to it 6 months prior, and every time you mess up, you are chiding yourself. Because I try to combine items, and she'd be like, that doesn't seem productive to me. And I'm like, yeah, well, you know what? Ivy 6 months ago, you know what? You just knew everything
You
back
know what?
then, didn't
Screw
you?
you, me.
Yeah. Oh my God. That doesn't seem productive. That doesn't seem productive to me. Okay, we get it. Like just maddening.
That must
That's
be a
fun.
trip.
It is. It's also extra funny when I would lurk sometimes on people streaming that game when it came out. I was like, I want to see what people are saying. So I would just like lurk. I wouldn't say anything. And it was also funny, like when they had the same thing with like, getting chided for the wrong solution and people screaming like, God, just shut up already. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. That was fun too.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, so those are my things. I'm on Twitter and I'm on Twitch, and
Nice.
that's
My
about
wife
that.
did some videos for I live in Durham, North Carolina. We live in Durham,
Mm-hmm.
and she did them for the city where she was touring different things. One of them was for um the recycling trucks. So she drove the recycling trucks and learned about the recycling thing on camera and all this stuff and how it
Oh,
all
cool.
works.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, some people, of course, because it's the internet, are being jerks, right? And they're like, oh, I really hate her personality. So she's on there trolling them, being like, yeah, I know, right?
Oh boy.
It just sounded like that. That's funny.
Yeah.
It's like, She can't act. Yes, but in my defense, acting classes are really expensive. Stuff like that.
Yes.
Anyway, very cool. Well, thank you so much, Ivy. Any last words?
I don't think so. I'm trying to think.
Stay in school,
Yeah.
be cool, don't do crack, right?
Yeah, all that sounds good. Don't let your memes be dreams. Live
Yeah.
those memes to the fullest.
Live your memes to the fullest. Yes.
Yes. That's my advice.
All right. Thank you very much for coming on.
Cool. Thank you so much for having me. This is so much fun.
It is fun. Thanks. You've been listening to Voiceover. How did you do it? At www.voiceoverpodcast.com with me, Ian Kleinfeld. You can watch the video to all our podcasts at voiceoverpodcast.com/YouTube. The background track is 1959 by my alter ego Max Rocket, and you can find that and other songs at www.maxrocketmusic.com. Remember to like, subscribe, write a review, and all that good stuff on whatever podcast streaming service you're listening to, and I'll see you next week. Thanks for listening.